Welcome back to another video. This really popped when I saw it. That to me is a monster increase. Again, this book got hot. This book is ready to go higher.
So let's jump right into it.
We are back today with another statue review from Diamond Select Toys. Without further ado, let's get into the review. What is going on, YouTube? This is Lawrence over at Money Comics and Collectibles, and we are back. And I'm with two of the best comic book YouTubers on the YouTube and Instagram scene. I have Mike from Money Comics and Brandon from MON Comics. How are you guys doing? Thank you for joining me here today.
Been great. Thanks for having us.
Hey, Lawrence. Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it, man.
No, like I was saying to both of these guys before we came on the channel, I have been really digging their content. I'm happy to have them finally on the show, and we're here for another episode of This or That, and I have some doozies to show them and you guys out there in the community. Just to give you a little bit of backstory, they know this already, but two of these books, a fan of the channel actually reached out to me via email and said, listen, I just traded my big book for another big book, and I was wondering out there, what you guys think in the community. Did I do a good thing? Did I get ripped off? Which book would you rather have? And of course, I added a third book to the mix just to kind of play with the idea a little bit to see what everyone were to choose. And that's why these guys are here to help me choose which book they'd rather have. Are you guys ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. So the first book we're going to be talking about is the book that he traded away. He traded away an Amazing Spider-Man number 129, the first appearance of the Punisher, and a CGC 9.8 white pages, a massive Bronze Age key. Do either one of you guys have an ASM 129 in your collection?
I do not.
I do not.
Not yet. That book is great in any grade, but just to have a 9.8, could you imagine, man? That's just insanity. So he traded away that book for a Batman number 16, and that is our second book today, in a CGC 9.0 old label. So it's a Golden Age book. If you guys don't know, it's the first appearance of Alfred. So a massive Batman key. And there really aren't too many of those, you know, in the Golden Age that are really affordable. So you can imagine what this book is going to cost. Now, me being who I am, I didn't want to do just two books. So I actually pulled a book of similar value. And it is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 4 in a 9.2 CGC, the first appearance of the Sandman. You guys know I'm a Spidey guy. I love Spidey, so I had to introduce a Spidey book. Now, just to give you a heads up, these books range anywhere from 25 to 30+ thousand in these grades. Now, with that said, it's a lot of money, but he brought me the idea of saying, hey, which would you guys rather do? So I wanted to pose a question to my fellow guests here today. So let's start with Mike. Out of those three books, right off the bat, before you know anything, which one are you leaning to?
Real quick, what is the year of the Batman 16?
Let's take a look. Off the top of my head, I do not know, but I have it right here, so we can just check.
We're talking like 40s, though.
I believe so, but where the hell is
it? That's an early Batman book.
All right, so it is 1943.
1943. Okay, wow. So knee-jerk reaction. I mean, this is one of those things. If I can leave any wisdom in the world when I leave it someday, is the difference between something being good and liking something, or disliking something means it's bad. That's not the case, right? What you like doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad. It's just what you like. Same thing when we look at collectibles and we tie things to value. A lot of times we look at the value of something and be like, oh, that's good because it's worth more. But obviously we have a personal preference where it's not always monetary. Knee-jerk reaction. I am a huge Marvel guy, almost exclusively. However, and this is my mea culpa to the world, I don't love the Punisher. He's one of my least liked Marvel heroes. I don't think he's a hero. I think he's a bad guy. I've never liked the Punisher. It is a monster Bronze Age key. I'd love to have it, obviously, but I'm not a huge fan, but it is an ASM book. I am a huge Spider-Man fan. I think the Sandman, that's fantastic. Number 4. And what was the grade of that one again?
9.2.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, early ASM is expensive in any grade. When you get into the 9 range, you're talking, crazy talk. And I'm also an antique collector. So that Batman 16 from the 40s, I mean, that's an incredibly scarce Golden Age book. And I'm guessing before we even get into this, that has to be the rarest one by far. And I imagine my knee-jerk reaction is that's probably worth the most. If it was me, I think I picked the ASM 4. And that, man, you picked 3 really good books. You really did. Personal preference, I picked the ASM 4. I think if you are a long-term collector and you really want to make your collection something unique, I think you have to go with that Batman. But yep, you asked me, I got to pick one. I got to go with the ASM4.
So Mike brings an interesting point into the topic. Is like, it's not all about money, right? I mean, we're all collectors. We collect what we like. Me, you guys know I'm a huge Spider-Man fan as well. Sandman is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains, and he's got the top rogues gallery, along with Batman. So I can understand totally what Mike is saying. Some people are just in this to say, you know what, I'm going to take the most valuable book. I'm going to take the most scarce book. But Mike brings up a great point. Now, Brandon, what's your first gut initial reaction for these three?
Similar to Mike, I did like the Punisher growing up. I thought he was a pretty cool, anti-hero, if you will. I liked his backstory. Someone who is above the law, when in reality, that's what heroes always are. They're someone above the law. They are vigilantes. So I do like that. However, I am not a high-grade comic guy. Like, having it in a 9.8 is cool, and monetarily it's great. However, I'm always used to buying what I can afford. So if I was going to go after that book, I could find a 2.0, 3.0 copy and obtain it pretty easily on the market these days at a pretty fair price and be happy with it. ASM 4 and a 9.2 for Sandman, that is really a cool book. You won't see that in a 9.2 very often, and I am a huge Spider-Man fan. Now, I do go back and forth between Marvel and DC. Mike and I are kind of similar in that regards too, is that we dabble. We put our toes in DC, for some of the more quirky or weirder, nuanced characters. But I have always been a huge Batman fan. Ever since growing up, my parents watched the campy '66 Batman. I grew up with Michael Keaton, and my father was a huge fan of that show. That book, the rarity of that book, to have Alfred's first appearance, I don't even care about the money it's worth. I care about just how unique and how much of a foundational comic, if you follow Alex the Comic Order, how much that would just be a really cool piece in a collection. So, again, I could pick up the 129 in a low grade, be happy. I could even pick up the ASM 4 in a relatively low grade and be happy. But that Batman book in the 40s, that's a once-in-a-lifetime book. I've got to go with the Batman 16.
All right, so we have one ASM 4, one Batman 16. But go ahead, Mike. What were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, you killed me with that third choice, because if I think he's your friend, and a 9.8 is amazing, but I think I make that trade too. If he's worried about, if he's second guessing himself, I think I make that trade. I just like Spider-Man. The preference is kicking in for me, but man, Brandon, I mean, I just looked at the cover of the Batman. I mean, it's really cool. So I'm with you, man. I don't think you have a bad choice among the three of these.
Right. So again, like I said before, like I had to throw a third book in because I feel like if it was just the two, it might be a little just one-sided. I think because of rarity, because of Batman's a main character, Alfred. So I had to introduce that third, and that's exactly why I did it, because me being a Spidey guy, it really makes it a tough choice, and it made a tough choice for Mike as well. So we're gonna get into the GPA data to see if I could change your mind at all. Maybe give you a little bit of information. We're gonna start with Mike because he picked the ASM 4. So I'm gonna give you, believe it or not, in a 9.2. There's been one sale in that grade over 3 years, and it's this copy that sold in June of this year, and it sold for $32,400.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I'm like, wow, that book in that grade is that much money? Because I own an ASM 4, and be honest with you, like back when I bought it, it's like a $500 book when I bought it in like a 2.0. So I'm not even thinking that high is that much money, but that is really expensive.
That census surprised me. I know they're scarce when you get to a 9 for the early ASM, but that's much rarer than I would have expected it to be. So wow. Yeah.
So that's a short one because there's only one sale. So let's go into the Batman, which Brandon shows. Now, believe it or not, in a 9.0, there's only one sale in the past 3 years, and that was in November of 2020. Long time ago, 3 years almost. And it was only $22,800. So a lot less than that ASM 4. So I decided to go ahead and pull also an 8.5 because that had a more recent sale. So I said it was $22,000 for a 9.0 in 2020. In 2022, June of last year, an 8.5 sold for $27,000. So it sold more than the 9.0 that was 2020. So now you got to figure a 9.0 is probably worth 28 to 30, I would think, or maybe even 27 now because of maybe the market pullback. But either way, close to $30,000.
Yeah, that sounds about accurate to me. And yeah, that's crazy money.
Yeah, and the 2020 number is right in the early of the comic boom. Like, you know what I mean? So it would have, there was still room for it to spike, and even then, it hasn't completely reset. So, yeah, I'm not surprised by that, honestly.
To me, the first thing that jumped out is like the two sales data that it pulled. Only one sale of each book in 3 years in that grade, which is right off the bat. That's shocking to me. Usually, when you get to GPA data, there's a lot more sales, a lot more whatever. Today, one sale on each. So let's get into the ASM 129, the book that you guys didn't pick, in a 9.8 white pages. By the way, the Batman 16 is also white pages, which is also a rarity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. So the ASM 129. Last sale for this book was last month, $31,200 for a 9.8. So again, right in line, $31,000. The 90-day average, again, that same amount because only one copy sold. There were 12 copies over the past year in a 9.8 that sold.
Yep.
And the average was $30,530. So in 2022, the average for a 9.8, and there were 10 sales, was $36,996. So it's come down, 5,000 and change. It's just a lot to come down, but still. And in 2021, the average was $31,163 on just 6 sales. So again, a lot of money, but we all know Bronze Age, there's a lot more copies out there. So, So far with the GPA and data that I've given you, we're sticking to our picks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can't take it back now.
The numbers you just told us about the 129, when I was watching your previous video, I'm like, yes, there's more copy of Bronze Age, and they come to market a lot more often, and that's just proof. The ASM 4 and the Batman 16, only one copy of each. Like, does that tell you collectors are really holding on to those more rare, higher grade books?
Yeah. I mean, I was shocked that there were 12 copies that were sold in a 9.8. That seems like a lot to me, but
I think it's just a percentage of how many are graded. I mean, there's obviously, I don't know what the numbers are total on the census. There needs to be hundreds more ASM 129s than the other two. I mean, up above a 9, there has to be. So I'm not.
I would think so. Yeah. I would think so too. We're going to get into the CGC numbers now. Keep in mind, there's probably still raw books of all 3 of these out there, but probably 4 or less of the Batman 16. But let's start with the ASM 129 because we know there's a ton of copies. So
I also want to say real quick, I'm surprised that number 16 is Alfred's first appearance. You would think it would be like Batman 1 or 2. You think it would be early when you learn about Bruce Wayne. I think that's.
He was doing laundry.
Yeah, what was he doing for the first 15 issues, right?
Even Detective Comics.
Time? Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't show up in Detective Comics issues. I'm surprised you're right. It was still 16. It was a long time for him to show up.
Right. Yeah, I'm surprised by that. Yeah.
Because even Robin came in Detective Comics number 38, which I believe was before Batman 16. So that shocks me a little bit as well. I always thought he played a role in Robin coming with Batman, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not 100%, but I think Alfred, was he thought up by Bill Finger? Was that one of Bill Finger's characters?
I'm not sure.
That could play into it too.
Mm-hmm. That's something we all have to look up, but yes, great point. All right, so ASM 129. As of when I took this data, which was a couple weeks ago, there were a total of 16,926 copies on the CGC census. Now, Universal, 14,883, 72 qualified, 1,662 signature series, and 309 restored. The highest grade, of course, is that 9.8, no 9.9s, and there's no 10s. 172 9.8s on the census. A lot of copies out there. Any reaction to this data or about what you think?
That's honestly, it's a little lower than I thought. I thought it would be over 200, but yeah, I'm not surprised. It's a Bronze Age book. It's not that old.
Yeah, I cheated and watched your earlier video where you had ASM 129. So it was really and then I started digging into different books. But yeah, that's I mean, and just not even knowing your data, that sounds accurate.
I mean, just to think, like, I know for Bronze Age books, there's still a ton of raw copies out there as well. Probably not too many 9.8s, but there's still a ton out there.
Oh, yeah. Well, put it this way. They find collections all the time as, unfortunately, people pass, in their collections. Widows sell a lot of these books. That's still the age of these guys when they were collecting. 40s books, not so much. Those people have passed a long time ago. So, yeah, I'm not surprised. There's a lot of them out there still.
All right, so we're going to go into the ASM 4. Because Mike chose that first. So total ASM4s on the CGC census are 3,093, which is actually far less than an AF15. For those of you that don't know, I think there's just under 4,000 AF15s out there, but just under 2,700 universal, 19 qualified, 141 signature series, and 234 restored. The highest grade is a 9.6. There's 3 universals, 1 qualified, and 1 restored. In a 9.2, like the book we're showing, only 20 copies, universal, and 3 restored.
Wow, that's low.
Yeah.
That's very low.
It's very low.
The most amount of copies in per grade is a total of 358 at a grade of a 4.0 of the Sandman, which is still, to me, is still a relatively low number for a Silver Age book, in my opinion. All right, so let's get to the Batman data. But go ahead, Mike. You have something else to add?
No, I was just gonna say. The early ASM is very scarce. It wasn't. He was still gaining his popularity at that time. The Sandman book in particular doesn't have a great cover. You can see maybe it wouldn't be the book that people hold on to. It kind of looks kind of hokey with the 4 different panels. That being said, that's still much rarer than I thought it would be. So
I know, right?
Too.
I mean, to the fact that it's under amount of AF15s. I know AF15 was a really popular book, when it came out because of the cover in itself, but I'm shocked that under right around 3,000 copies of this book. I get what Mike's saying. The cover, always people complain a little bit about the 4 square, but to me, I actually like it. It's one of the few covers that you see like that. You don't see many 4-panel covers from the Silver Age, so I always like that one.
It's very like comic strip. That's the one thing I like about those ones. All
right, so let's check out the Batman 16 because this is like the one we're waiting for, right? Because we know it's the most rare. So there are a total of 250 copies on the census. That's it. 192 universal, 4 qualified, 2 signature series, believe it or not, and 52 restored. The highest grade is a 9.2. There's 1 copy. There's 3 9.0s. That's it.
Yeah,
I always thought it would be cool. I always thought it'd be cool to own a book to say there's only 3 of this in the world at this grade. That's just
crazy.
Very cool.
But also think about this, right? It's 9.0. There's 3 copies, 1 grade higher, 9.2, and this is an older label CGC book, right? There's a possibility that somebody can crack this book out and really try to get a 9.2. I'm not saying that's the wise because I don't think it is, but somebody really wanted to say, I can get a 9.2. I have the highest grade copy now of this book. That is like, I hate to say it, in a book like this, which it's a major first appearance of a major character, and to have the highest rated copy in existence, like that could do wonders for the value.
It's true. I forgot you said old label. That's interesting. That adds a little bit more of a different dimension to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, like I told you before we started the show, these comics are for my kids. So if I was able to procure that, that could be life-changing for them in 20 to 30 years.
Yeah. Like I said,
I got to enjoy it on the wall for a bit.
I'm not changing my choice. I would still pick ASM4 for me, but in terms of making your collection better long term, I think you have to pick the Batman. All
right. So now that you have the data, did I change your mind at all? Did I give you like a little bit of pause and say, you know what? Like maybe I would do that, or you just I want that ASM book. I'm 100% the Batman key. What are your thoughts? Start with Brandon this time.
I'm sticking with Batman. Like everything you just broke down, there's just a little over 200 on the census for the Batman. And like I said, I'm a big fan of Batman. I have some of his books. I collect what I love. However, I think with every comic collector, there's that little bit of intrigue of owning something that incredibly rare. Just to say, hey, there's 3 of these in the world. And maybe I'll, Mike and I use the same cleaner, Jeff, over at Comic Spa, who does fantastic work. And he worked with paper for years before he even got into comic cleaning and pressing. And I would trust him with that book to, say, hey, I think I can do this. He would tell us straight. He would tell me straight up, I don't think there's any room, or let's, if you're willing to put it on the line. And if we're talking about fictional money. So yeah, not swaying. Batman 16, definitely.
Mike?
I don't feel like I'm going back on my decision because I said at the beginning, it's definitely the better book to own long term. I was just saying what my personal preference was. However, it's even rarer than I thought it was. I thought it'd be by far the most rare and by far the most valuable. And I'm surprised that the price isn't more for what it is. So, oh man. Brandon, you got me with the kids, man. You got me with the kids. I'm starting to think, which one would I rather leave to them? It's probably the Batman. I hate to go back on what I said, but yeah, maybe it is the Batman. That's just too unique of a thing to have. You can get a low grade, for a Sandman. You can find that somewhere. You're not finding any of these Batmans. So, yeah, sure, fine.
By the end of our lifetime, that's going to be a 6-figure book.
I think you may. I think you may right. You know what? Usually at the end of these videos, I give my opinion, and I'll still do that in a bit. But I want to remind everybody that a friend of the channel actually emailed me and said, you know what? He traded his ASM 129 and 9.8 for this Batman number 16, and he wanted to know from me and from the people out there, did he do a good job? So you guys saying he definitely did a good job, right?
That's without a question. I mean, I know a lot of people love the 9.8s. You see the dollar signs. It's Punisher. People love Punisher, but that's a no-brainer to me. I mean, even as a Marvel guy, you make that trade all day. You threw in the third book, which got me because I love Spider-Man. So, but yeah, no doubt, he made the right play. Yeah.
Whoever your friend is made a wise decision. Like, to be able to hold that book, a piece of history from the 40s, the early 40s. Well done, man.
So, Steve, you heard that? That's his name, Steve. You did well, according to the three of us here. I think you won that one. And by this GPA data, like by the selling standards as of right now, ASM 129 sold for more money in a 9.8. But I think over the long term, these guys proved it that I think that book is going to be worth more going down the line. And if you're a Batman fan, I think you did great, considering I'm going to throw in there that's an old CGC label. If you ever did want to press it and get it possibly bumped, there's no type of value that's going to be put on that book that's saying this is now the highest graded copy of this book in existence, because that's like, I don't know what kind of value that does to a book. It could shoot up to who knows, so this is the highest grade in existence. People are going to fight and claw some people, collectors, to try to get that book. So for me, I'm a Spidey guy, just like Mike is. I'm a big 129 guy. You guys know it's one of my favorite John Romita and Gil Kane covers. I love that book. And ASM 4 is also like an early Silver Age Spidey key. I had to throw it in there. But at the end of the day, I think the Batman 16, it's just so rare. It's just a major character like Alfred. Everybody knows who he is. And the fact that there's only 250 on the census, and this could be the highest grade at some point if it does get pressed, I think it was a no-brainer for me.
And in my defense too, I didn't see the cover. I'm sure you're going to edit it in. I didn't see the cover, and when I made my decision, it's a much cooler cover than ASM 4. It's a great cover. The blue cover, you got Batman and Robin, silhouette of the gangster. Very, very cool looking book. Even as just, obviously putting it in a vault probably if you own that book. But if you want to put it on a shelf or a wall behind us, show people, it's a very cool book to show off.
So, yeah. So if you guys don't know what I do, instead of me just having all the mishmash on the screen, so me adding stuff and bringing it down, I actually added this stuff in. So I showed him the books prior to us going on. So that's why Mike is referring to that. So, it's just an easier way. It gets a little bit too clunky with the three of us on the screen and then me starting to shuffle stuff around. So I do it after the fact, but he is right. It is a beautiful cover. So any last words before we end this thing, guys?
That was tough. But I do love Spider-Man. Who doesn't love Spider-Man? I mean, I grew up loving him, and I would love to own either of those books, but man, that was a tough one. I knew it was going to be tough when I knew it was coming on your show, Lawrence, and I was just
I didn't think it would be that tough. That was you picked three good ones. I might change. Hit me up on Instagram later. I might change my mind again. Who knows?
1.8, 1.9 is nothing to snuff at for sure. That's
absolutely. Like there's still what did I say? I don't even remember how many copies I said, but regardless, it's still worth owning. Absolutely. Any graded, all these books are worth owning. Like you said before, you're able to pick up lower grade copies of certain books, especially these. They're all major keys. You take them all day long if you can. They don't have to be the highest grade. This was just posed to me as what would you do? So I wanted to do a video on it. While I have you guys, before I let you go, I'm going to ask you both this question. If there was one book, regardless of money, that you could own in your collection, what would it be?
I've gotten this question many times. I mean, again, this is where you have to do the hypothetical. A lot of people would obviously pick, first Batman, first Superman, just because you could sell it and buy all the comic books you ever wanted, but if money wasn't a part of the equation, X-Men 1 is the one I need. That's my holy grail. I need it. I'm an X-Men guy. And that's my holy grail, acknowledging the fact there are plenty of books out there that are worth far more, and I could buy 10 X-Men ones, you know. But yeah, I have to go X-Men 1. I got to stick with my X-Men.
Brandon?
I knew you'd say that, and you probably knew I'd say I got to say Fantastic Four. I'm a huge history person, and what they did to change Marvel as the first Marvel team, and I'm going after that run, and I'm probably going to have to settle for a Golden Record reprint and be happy with it, just because a low grade is already I can't justify ever paying that much. So Fantastic Four 1 would be, you know, that cover too. That cover just grabs me.
Both great choices, man. I wish you luck. Hopefully you both get them some point down the line. But I want to thank you both for coming on the channel tonight. I know it's been a couple of weeks trying to get a time and place to kind of hook up and do this. But again, I thank you so much. If you guys are not following either of their channels, please do so. Both great content creators on YouTube, and two of the guys I watch consistently. So again, thank you guys.
Thank you, Lawrence. Appreciate you having me.
All right, guys. This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics Collectibles saying thank you for watching, and I will talk to you guys soon.